Hi, this is Becky Gromlich with the Watercolor Classroom and Tuesday Watercolor Tips. Today I'm going to do a nativity and I'm going to use Frisket for the straw and for the star. I use these little things. They're made by the gum company and they're called toothpicks, but they make a pretty fine line. Finer than most other things. I'm just going to make these little lines all over, some of them bent. And of course I'll be doing the same kind of straw things with my brush, the same shapes and sizes. And that one got really thick. If they get really thick after they're dry, you can rub them off. They won't look nice if they're really thick. But I am going to do the baby's clothes in white, the wrapping cloths. And so I'm going to just go on and do that. This is a big enough area that you probably could paint around it. But I am going to make some fairly dark colors on the background, so this seems like it might be a bit easier. So this mixture here is quinacridone rose and a little bit of rust. And just to make a little bit more olive skin, I'm going to put the tiniest bit of blue in there. There you have it. Still pretty pink, but I think it'll be okay. And I will go back in when that's dry. Well, maybe I'll do it before it's dry and put in a little bit of this pink because rosy cheeks just are fun. Now I'm going to take my big brush. This is a golden talcum quill. Holds a lot of water, and I'm going to make the background all wet. Even though I'm going to be having some different colors in here, I'm also going to go across the manger, even though I'm not planning to paint it any color, any of this background color right now. But it doesn't matter if it gets some of the yellow from the straw. Now for the yellow, I'm using gamboge, and you could use ochre if you have it. That's a very good color for straw. A little bit of rust. And then that's so bright that I want to tone it down with a little bit of ultramarine blue, which I want to put in. So there we're getting some more straw colors, but it could lean towards green, so a little bit more rust. All right, there we go. Some highlights of yellow and some more tan. So I am going over the manger with this color. And I also want to make this a slight halo effect. I'm rinsing my brush and drying it out. And just spreading a little bit further. All right, now let's get into some darks. I want to go with teal for a night sky, a dark teal. And so for that, I'm mixing phthalo green, which is really loud, and dioxazine purple, which is really loud, but they make this great teal color together. And while the paper's wet, I'm going to go around and put it in the background everywhere. There'll be bits of it here. I want that to blend in there with this yellow. I purposely made the yellow go further than I wanted it to, than I needed it to. Now that looks very stark, and I don't want lines, so I'm just wiggling my brush all over like that. And I'm gonna put a greener color with it, mostly at the outside. Maybe even more greener. And have it lighten as it moves in. And you can see it's starting to spread into these different, into the yellows. I forgot to Frisket a star, so I'm just not gonna put one in. I did see one person try, make stars or snowflakes or whatever by putting some bleed-proof white onto wet paper. And since I forgot the star, I think I'm gonna attempt that. I have to tell you, I've never done it before, so I don't know how it's gonna turn out. Hopefully I won't ruin my whole painting. Is Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed-proof white. It's very white, and you want a very clean brush to stick into it. And then you make a puddle. You can water it down just like watercolor. Now I want these to be very small. It might be that something like this is better. The trouble is that when you're not splattering, it's very hard to make things random. Our minds just want to go, oh, it needs one there. That's working out. And they're spreading out enough that they don't necessarily look like snowflakes. I don't really want it to look like snowflakes. I decided to give it a try and to put a star right over the baby that spreads, that's bigger. Apparently it works better to dab with this. I do like that, the way it's spreading out. I think I have it a little lopsided. Oh, the baby got a little bit of yellow on his forehead, so I'm going to lift that off. And while I have it damp from lifting that off, I'm going to put a little bit of brown, which I make with rust and blue. Maybe a little bit blacker than that. But I want it to be light because baby's peach fuzz is usually not too dark. Okay. And then he has a little tiny bit of an eyelash. Next thing I'm going to paint is Manger. And I'm mixing my rust and blue together, making a rich brown. And I want some grays, and these have to be way watered down. They're so intense. This is the part that's really nice about Frisket. It just goes. And then I'm going to go to a slightly different color for this one, like a little bit darker. Oh yeah, I really lost my drawing. I think it's way out here. And then I'm going to go with the grayer color for for the next one. Now these boards had and I'll define them a little bit more later. For now, though, I do want to soften the edge and not have this edge that's really distinct. And there's also some shadows that come across. I'll put them in. There's some shadow back here. Now on this one, I want this back one to be darker, and it does come up on this side, on the front of that. The front of that, but behind that other one. Get into them from those edges at the bottom. Get some shadows in. And then I need to fix this blue back here so that it looks like it's part of the same background. It's always better to have your background continue. If you have one color behind this part and another color over here, then they don't look like they're part of the same painting. And then soften those edges. Oops, got a puddle. I'll let this bleed up into there. And again, same color. Now I want to start having some of this jaggedy look. Now we're going to take off the frisket, which is always interesting because you really don't know what it's going to look like. See how much thicker they looked than they looked when they were white? Down here it's and then you rub your hands over it because you can feel it better than you can see it. Now I'm going to run over this straw with just gamboge because I want those pieces of straw to be highlighted yellow, and then I'll go back in and I'll put darker straw in there. And that also has diminished a little bit. Now I'm going to work on these shadows with little straw-like pieces instead of, I've already put them in. This is a pretty dark color. Then I'll lighten that just a bit. I'm drying off my brush on my cellulose sponge and then going back in there. Okay, that's still damp there, so I'm just going to work down here to get some more darker color in here. It's a little, and maybe I'll just let this run in here too. There would be some shadow from the manger as well. Making these ones darker because they got thick, and it helps diminish them a little bit. Same with here, right by the blanket, it would be in the shadow, and so I'm going to make it darker up there. I want the blanket to be bright ultramarine blue and white. So the shadowing on the blanket is going to be more of a gray, and that needs to be super watered down, like almost barely showing. And I'm going to use that just to get some of the folds showing in the blanket and the shadows. And these need a little bit of shadow in them too, and just turning white as they get out to the end. And I'm making most of this light blue so it doesn't stand out so much, and it will still look white when it's done. Now I'm going to take a very fine brush and put some of this royal blue on and make some stripes. Now that is so dark that you can't tell what color it is, so I'm going to water some down a little bit and just get some of that up. I'll probably leave that. I wanted to put 3 stripes on that, but that's not going to happen. Too small of an area. I'm going to mix a little bit of bleed-proof white with some of the gamboge, and I'm going to try to do something with this star. Tape off. Whenever I do a painting, I look at it for a little while, that's why, and then I tweak. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, would you please hit the subscribe, hit the like, leave me a message. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much for watching.